As I stepped into the entrance of my new home, a mix of excitement and anxiety washed over me. The afternoon sun filtered through the leafy trees surrounding the property, creating a dance of light and shadow on the dark wooden floor. It was an old house, with large windows and a slate roof that seemed to have stories to tell. The gentle breeze carried the scent of earth and flowers from the garden, but there was something more, an indefinable feeling that the house held secrets. "Are you okay, Emma?" my brother Oliver asked, who was carrying a box of books. He stopped beside me, looking for some kind of response. "Yeah, I'm just thinking," I replied, forcing a smile. The truth was that a slight unease accompanied me. It felt as if by crossing that threshold, I had entered another world, a world where the past still breathed within the walls. I began to explore the house, each room revealing a new facet of what would become my home. The living room was spacious, with windows opening to the backyard garden. The old wallpaper, with its faded flowers, told a story of times gone by. I felt the need to touch the walls, as if I could absorb the memories that lingered there. "Look at this!" Oliver exclaimed, pointing to a dark corner. "Have you ever seen a place so dusty?" "No, but that just means there's a lot to discover," I replied, already moving toward the hallway. Curiosity tugged at me, and I couldn't resist. I climbed the stairs, each step echoing in the silence of the house. The corridor was narrow, and the closed doors seemed to hold secrets. At the end of the corridor, I found a door leading to the attic. The doorknob was rusty, and as I turned it, a loud creak sliced through the quiet. Light filtered through a small foggy window, illuminating the space with a soft glow. As I stepped inside, the air felt heavier, and dust danced in the rays of light. The attic was filled with old objects, covered by a fine layer of dust. An old rocking chair leaned against a wall, and stacked boxes seemed to be waiting for someone to uncover their secrets. My gaze was drawn to a particular object, a dusty diary resting on a low table, almost as if it were waiting for me. "Emma, what did you find there?" Oliver asked, now at the door, looking at me with curiosity. "A diary," I replied, wiping the cover with my hand. The leather was worn but still beautiful. It seems to have belonged to the former resident of the house. "Are you going to read it?" he asked, moving closer. "Of course," I said, opening the diary. The pages were yellowed and smelled of mildew, but each word seemed to vibrate with life. I began to read aloud. "Today is the first day I've decided to write about the voices I hear. They whisper at night, and although I try to ignore them, I can't. Sometimes, it feels like they're calling my name." A chill ran down my spine. "Voices? That's strange," I murmured. "Maybe she was just tired," Oliver suggested, laughing nervously. "Or maybe the house is haunted." "Don't be silly," I retorted, but a part of me began to wonder if there was some truth in those words. I continued reading. "Everyone in town seems to know about them. I've been called crazy for trying to tell my story. But I can't just ignore what I hear. The voices speak of secrets buried here, and I need to find out what they are." "That's a bit disturbing," Oliver commented, glancing around as if expecting to see something move in the shadows. "Do you think she was really hearing voices?" "Maybe," I replied, closing the diary. "Or maybe she was just too lonely, and her mind played tricks on her. Or maybe, she was hiding something," Oliver said, his gaze drifting into the shadows of the attic. That sent a shiver down my spine. What else could be hidden there? What more could this house reveal to me? I decided I needed to know more about the woman who had written those words. I went to the shelves and began rummaging through the boxes. There were old photographs, yellowed letters, and other objects that seemed to have belonged to her. With each discovery, I felt the woman becoming more real to me, as if her essence was imbued in the house. "Emma, you're losing track of time," Oliver said, glancing at his watch. "Let's head downstairs before Mom comes looking for us." "Just a minute," I pleaded, soaking in the atmosphere of the attic. I closed my eyes for a moment, trying to imagine the woman who had lived there. What brought her to this house? What secrets did she hold? When I finally descended, the sunlight was setting, and a shadow enveloped the house. The sense of discomfort I had felt upon arrival began to intensify. I looked at the windows, as if expecting to see someone watching me from inside. "Emma, are you okay? You look pale," Oliver remarked, noticing my expression. "Yeah, I'm just thinking about the woman from the diary," I replied, trying to shake off the shadows forming in my mind. That night, as I prepared for bed, the whispers began to echo in my mind. I recalled the words from the diary and felt a chill run through my body. I hadn't heard anything, but the idea that the house might be alive in some way unsettled me. I closed my eyes, wishing the voices would fade away. But instead, they seemed to grow stronger, as if the house was calling for me. The sound transformed into a soft murmur, almost like a distant song that wrapped me in a web of mystery and unease. "Emma!" I heard, and for a moment, I thought it was my mother calling. But the voice was different, more ethereal, more enticing. "Emma, come to us." I got out of bed cautiously and walked to the window. I looked out at the deserted street, illuminated by the moonlight. The quiet of the night enveloped everything, but there was something in the breeze that made me feel as if I were being watched. That house was old, but full of stories. I was sure the woman who had lived there had left her mark in every corner. What had she discovered? What did the voices want from me? With those questions hammering in my mind, I felt that this was just the first night of many to come. The house and its secrets were just beginning to unfold, and I had the feeling I was about to embark on a journey that would change everything I knew about myself and my family. That night, as the whispers became clearer, my curiosity transformed into determination. As soon as dawn broke, I would begin to seek answers, not only about the woman in the diary but about the voices that now echoed within me. My first night in the house was a mix of excitement and a slight discomfort I couldn't ignore. The wind blew fiercely, making the trees sway as if dancing to a rhythm I couldn't understand. The atmosphere had a strange aura, as if the walls were breathing and holding secrets I wasn't ready to uncover. When I finally lay down, the sounds of the house echoed in my ears, the creaking of the floorboards, the whispering of the wind, and amidst it all, a soft voice that seemed to be calling me. "Emma." It was a low whisper, almost like a distant echo. I thought it was just my imagination, an illusion brought on by fatigue and the new routine I was starting. I closed my eyes and let sleep envelop me, but even then, the feeling that something was there, watching me, wouldn't leave. The next morning, I woke to light filtering through the dusty windows. The day was bright, but the feeling of unease lingered. I decided I needed to explore every corner of that house. What intrigued me most were the old objects that seemed to tell stories of past lives. After breakfast, I grabbed a notebook and a pen. If I was going to live there, I needed to understand the history those walls held. I entered every room, admiring the decor that seemed frozen in time. The parlor was filled with heavy furniture and the scent of aged wood. But it was the attic that called to me. ####. With a hint of hesitation, I climbed the creaking stairs that groaned under my weight, each step sounding like a warning. As I opened the attic door, I was met with a cloud of dust and a musty smell. Light timidly filtered through the small windows, illuminating objects draped in sheets that looked like ghosts from the past. As I explored, my fingers glided over a wooden box, and upon opening it, I found a dusty diary. My eyes sparkled with curiosity. The diary was worn, its pages yellowed and fragile. I began to leaf through it, and the irregular handwriting of a woman caught my attention. "This is where it all begins," I murmured to myself, sitting on the cold attic floor. The words I read were from a woman named Clara, who had lived there over 50 years ago. She spoke of voices that accompanied her, whispers echoing in the walls during moments of solitude. "These voices speak to me," she wrote in one passage. "They are soft and familiar, yet they also seem to threaten me. A chill ran down my spine. I was intrigued by the idea that someone, long before me, had experienced something similar. Clara seemed to have a deep connection with the house, but her accounts grew increasingly dark. Today, I heard a voice that said I am unwelcome. What does this mean? Am I losing my mind? She continued to describe her sleepless nights, tormented by the whispers that followed her. This is madness, I muttered, abruptly closing the diary. What was I doing? Was I allowing myself to be swept away by an old story, forgetting my own reality? I decided that they were nothing more than hallucinations and that I wouldn't let myself be carried away by this. Yet, deep down, a seed of doubt began to sprout. That night, as I tried to sleep, the whispers returned. Emma. Emma, they were clearer than before, as if they were materializing around me. My heart raced in my chest, and I got up, determined to discover the source of those sounds. I looked around the room, but everything was silent, except for the beat of my own breath. It's just my imagination, I told myself, trying to calm down. But the truth was, curiosity consumed me. The voices seemed to have an intention, a purpose I couldn't understand. The next morning, the first thing I did was visit my neighbor, Lily, who seemed to be the only person willing to listen to my experiences. Good morning, Lily, I said, trying to disguise my unease. Have you ever heard of strange voices in old houses? I moved into Clara's house and, well, I've heard some odd things. Lily looked at me with a skeptical expression, but soon her gaze softened. Oh, Emma, you know how old houses are. They have a lot of history and some legends. People often say that the voices are echoes from the past. But it's not just that, I insisted, my heart racing. They're calling me by name. I can't be the only one hearing this. Lily hesitated, but the empathy in her eyes encouraged me. Maybe I can help. Let's investigate this together. Who knows what we can discover about Clara and what really happened to her. I felt relieved by her offer. I needed someone who believed in me, someone who could help me understand the confusion forming in my mind. Thus, we began to plan a research project about the history of the former resident. What more could I expect? The voices seemed to be guiding me, and I was determined to follow this path, even if it led me to dark and unknown places. In the following days, each whisper echoing in my ears became a new clue, a new key to unraveling the house's past. The voices grew clearer, and in moments of solitude, I heard them conversing amongst themselves, as if discussing something I needed to understand. Emma, come to us, they said, and I felt a mix of fear and fascination. One night, while I was in the living room, the voices began to overlap, forming a chorus that echoed against the walls. Secrets, secrets, hidden in the shadows, they whispered. I stood up, my breath quickening, and walked toward the wall where the sound was most intense. What do you want from me? I asked, my voice trembling. A heavy silence enveloped the room, and I felt a coldness creep down my spine. Then, one voice stood out among the others, find the truth, Emma. That was enough to send me into a panic. The truth? What truth? I was afraid of what I might discover, but curiosity pushed me to move forward. Deep down, I felt that those whispers were a connection between me and the woman who had lived there before me. Something within me wanted to understand why Clara was trapped in that cycle of voices and secrets. When I met with Lily the following day, I couldn't contain my anxiety. The voices have become more intense, Lily. They're telling me to find the truth. What does that mean? Lily looked at me with concern, but there was also a renewed determination in her gaze. It means we need to dig deeper. Let's search old records, talk to the older neighbors, anything that can give us a clue about Clara. So, we began to devise a plan. What had seemed like a simple change of residence was turning into an intense quest for answers. I was about to discover that the whispered secrets hidden within the walls of the house were more than mere stories. They were echoes of lives past, and I was about to become part of that narrative. As I walked through the house, the feeling of being watched grew with each step. The walls, with their marks of time, seemed to hold secrets just waiting for the right moment to be revealed. I couldn't shake the feeling that the house was alive, pulsing with stories of pain and love. The attic, with its shadows and dust, felt like a portal to a past I still didn't fully understand. It was there that I found the diary. The leather was worn, and the cover opened reluctantly, as if it wanted to protect the words inside. I sat on the cold floor, surrounded by boxes of forgotten memories, and began to read. The first pages spoke of the daily life of the former resident, Clara, who had lived there before me. I was captivated by her notes about the seasons, the festivities, and interactions with neighbors. But soon, the words began to change. Clara mentioned voices calling her at night, whispers echoing through the walls, revealing secrets not just of the house but also of the town. Who would believe me? Clara wrote in an entry, scribbling the letters in anger. No one seems to understand. The house whispers, and people talk, but it's as if they're all asleep. I no longer know what's real. I closed the diary, feeling a chill run down my spine. Was I destined to repeat her story? A part of me wanted to dismiss her words as the product of a disturbed mind, but another part urged me to pay attention. Curiosity consumed me, and the idea that Clara might have known something I still didn't was pushing me to investigate further. In the following days, the whispers began to intensify. At night, as I tried to sleep, I heard my name being called, like a gentle song drifting through the air. Emma. Emma. It was as if the voices were speaking lovingly, but there was also an urgency that unsettled me. I tried to ignore them, but it was impossible. I decided I needed to talk to someone about it, and that's how I found myself on my porch, talking to my neighbor, Lily. Have you heard anything strange around here? I asked, trying to sound casual, though my heart was racing. Lily looked at me with a curious expression. Strange how? Like noises at night? I've heard some things, but this is an old house. It could just be the wind. No, it's not just the wind, I insisted, feeling the need to vent. I hear whispers, and they talk about the neighborhood, about things they shouldn't know. It's like the house is telling me secrets. She furrowed her brow, thoughtful. That's unusual. But you know that your house isn't the only one with a strange history around here, right? ###, the former resident disappeared, and no one ever explained what happened. What do you mean? I asked, intrigued. There are many rumors, she began, looking around as if afraid of being overheard. They say she got involved in things she shouldn't have, rituals, cults, stuff like that. I didn't know what to think. The idea that the house could be linked to something so dark made me uneasy. Do you really believe that? I don't know. But if you're hearing voices, maybe we should investigate. It could just be your imagination, but what if it isn't? What if those whispers are important? We could uncover the truth about Clara and what happened to her. Lily's proposal ignited a spark of hope within me. Together, we could unravel this mystery. In the following days, we gathered in the living room, surrounded by books and city records, with a pile of old newspapers around us. The smell of aged paper filled the air as we flipped through the yellowed pages. Look at this, Lily said, pointing to an article. It talks about Clara's disappearance. It says she was last seen in the woods near the house. Woods? I murmured. I saw them when I moved in. They're dense and seem strange. She nodded. Many residents have reported odd things there. Some people claim they heard whispers similar to what you described. What do you think that means? I don't know, I replied, anxiety rising within me. But I feel like it's all connected. If Clara had something to do with these whispers, maybe we should go there. Let's do it, Lily said, determination shining in her eyes. Let's find the truth. The next morning, we decided to venture into the woods. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting patterns of light and shadow on the ground. The air was cool, but there was a palpable tension. As we walked, the atmosphere shifted. The birds' songs were replaced by an unsettling silence, and suddenly, the whispers began again. Emma. Emma. They were closer now, almost as if the woods were closing in on us. Are you hearing that? I asked, looking at Lily, who seemed just as frightened as I was. Yes. What is it? She whispered. With each step, I felt we were being guided, pulled by an invisible force. We need to keep going, I said, almost instinctively. We have to find out what they're trying to tell us. Finally, we reached a clearing. In the center, there was a small altar covered in moss, with stones arranged in a pattern that felt familiar, but I couldn't quite place it. The atmosphere was thick with strange energy, and the whispers became more intense. Look, Lily pointed to a stone with an inscription. It's her name. Clara. My heart raced in my chest. She was here. She did something here. Let's investigate further, Lily suggested, her voice now more resolute. The adrenaline surged through me, and we began to examine the stones and the altar for clues. As I touched one of the stones, a wave of images flooded my mind. I saw Clara, looking desperate, surrounded by shadows. Whispers echoed in my ears, and I could hear her voice. Don't let them take you. You're the only one, you need to remember. Emma. Lily's voice pulled me back to reality. Are you okay? I saw something, I stammered, still dazed. Clara, she was here. She was trying to warn me. About what? Lily asked, concerned. What did you see? I don't know, I confessed, but I feel like it's all connected. Clara, the house, the voices, maybe she was trying to alert me about something that happened to her, something I can't understand. We returned home, still processing what we had found in the woods. The image of Clara lingered in my mind. I needed to know more about her, more about the pain that led her to disappear. With the diary in hand, I returned to read the entries, now with a new understanding. She was so alone, I murmured as the words danced before my eyes. She was scared, and no one believed her. What happened to her might be what's happening to me now. Lily, sitting beside me, placed her hand on my shoulder. You're not alone, Emma. I'm here, and we'll figure this out together. The voices continued to echo in my mind, now more intense, more urgent. It was as if Clara was trying to communicate with me, showing me that we were more alike than I could imagine. And as the secrets of the house and the town began to intertwine with my own story, I realized that I needed to face not only the echoes of the past but also my own ghosts if I wanted to find the truth. The sunlight filtered timidly through the windows of my new home, casting dancing shadows on the worn wooden floor. The silence was almost palpable, but as day turned to night, a sense of unease began to envelop me. Since moving in, the house felt full of secrets, and I couldn't ignore the whispers echoing through the walls. I needed help. I decided to schedule an appointment with the town psychologist, Dr. Rachel Green. Her reputation for being a caring and understanding professional gave me hope. The day of the appointment arrived quickly, and I was nervous. Upon entering her office, I was welcomed by a cozy atmosphere, with walls adorned with soft paintings and plants that brought a sense of life to the space. Emma, right? Rachel greeted me with a gentle smile as she gestured for me to sit. How are you feeling today? A little overwhelmed, I replied, trying to articulate my thoughts. I think I'm still adjusting to the new house, and, well, I've been hearing some strange things. Strange how? Rachel leaned forward, showing genuine interest. They're whispers. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, but they seem real. They're getting clearer every day. Sometimes, they even seem to call my name. She observed me closely, as if unraveling a puzzle. And how do you feel when you hear these whispers? Scared, I guess, I confessed, looking down. But at the same time, I feel like they're trying to tell me something important. When I hear them, it feels like I'm connected to something bigger, as if the house is sharing its story with me. Rachel made a note in her notepad. It's understandable to feel that way, especially in a new home. People often project their emotions and experiences onto their environments, particularly in places with long histories, like this house. I found a diary in the attic, I added, recalling the dusty journal I had read. It belonged to the former resident. She also heard voices and became obsessed with them. But I don't want to end up like her. You mentioned she disappeared, right? Rachel asked, her eyes filled with empathy. Yes, and that scares me. I don't want to be the next one. I don't know what happened to her, but I feel there's something more, something that connects our fates. Are you willing to explore that? Rachel asked, her voice gentle. Sometimes confronting our fears is the first step to overcoming them. I don't know. It's hard, Rachel. I don't want to go crazy. I don't want to end up like the woman in the diary. You're not alone in this, Emma. The first thing we need to do is understand these whispers, write down what you hear, and maybe we can find a pattern or meaning. It could be a way for you to reconnect with your own story and understand why this is happening. I took a deep breath, feeling that therapy might be the key to unraveling the mystery surrounding me. I can try. I can start writing down everything I hear. Great. And remember, you're safe here. We'll work together to understand this. Rachel smiled, and I felt a bit more relieved. There was a sense of hope, something I hadn't felt in a long time. The following week, I returned home with a new notebook, ready to record the whispers. The nights were harder than I expected. As darkness fell, the whispers became more intense and disturbing. ####. Sometimes, it felt like the voices were becoming increasingly personal, as if they knew exactly who I was and what I feared. On my first night of jotting down notes, I sat on my bed and wrote. I heard a whisper that said, Emma, you need to know the truth. The sensation of being watched was suffocating, but I was determined not to let it consume me. Weeks passed, and I continued to document the whispers. One said, the truth is hidden in the shadows. Another, more disturbing whisper, murmured, you cannot escape what you are. In my next session, I brought my notebook. Rachel, it's getting more intense. The voices are becoming more personal. This last one left me uneasy. What does it mean? She looked at my notes and then at me, her expression serious. It's a sign that you're beginning to connect with your own story, with your identity. But this can be a painful process. I don't want this to consume me, I said, concern evident in my voice. Sometimes, I feel like I'm losing control. Remember, Emma, facing your demons doesn't mean you have to face them alone. We need to understand what these voices represent. The first thing I'd like you to do is to allow yourself to feel. What do these voices awaken in you? Fear, mostly. Fear that I'm trapped in something I don't understand. Fear of what might happen if I keep listening to these voices. She nodded patiently. It's natural to feel fear when confronting the unknown. But you should see this as an opportunity for growth. Try to connect with the emotions that arise when you hear the whispers. What do you feel physically? What memories come to mind? Sometimes, I feel a chill down my spine. Other times, there's a pressure in my chest, as if something is oppressing me. And then, there are moments when I feel a connection, a kind of recognition. That recognition might be the key, Rachel said, her voice encouraging. It seems there's a part of you trying to manifest, something you might have buried. Try to remember your childhood. Did you ever feel something similar? I closed my eyes, attempting to reach back in time. Blurred images of a feminine figure began to emerge in my mind. There was a woman who appeared in my dreams, she watched me. I could never see her face, but I always felt connected to her somehow. This woman might be related to the Whispers. Focus on that feeling. What do you think she represents? I don't know. Fear? Loneliness? I'm so confused, I said, frustration building up. And that's what we need to explore. Confusion is part of the process. When you feel ready, try a meditation or a visualization exercise. Imagine yourself in that house and see if you can find that woman. Ask her what she wants to tell you. And what if I don't like what I discover? I questioned, a knot forming in my throat. It's a risk you may have to take, Rachel replied, her voice calm and encouraging. But remember, you're not alone. I'll be here to support you. With each session, I felt like I was delving deeper into a web of mysteries and secrets that encased not only the house but also my own story. The connection with the woman from my past and the Whispers became both a burden and a release at the same time. It was as if each revelation was preparing me for an inevitable confrontation. That night, I decided it was time to confront the Whispers. I grabbed my notebook and sat on the floor of the attic, where it all had begun. The atmosphere was charged, and the darkness felt thicker. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, trying to open myself to whatever was lurking in the shadows. If you're here, I'm ready, I whispered, my voice trembling slightly. The silence was deafening, but slowly, the Whispers began to emerge again. Emma, you need to know the truth. I was scared, but also determined. Whatever was calling me, I would no longer ignore it. The nights in my new house were wrapped in a deep silence, broken only by the whispers that became increasingly present. I felt as though I was being watched, not just by those ethereal voices, but also by the town I had settled in. The rural scenery had its beauties, yet there was something unsettling, a shadow looming over everything. It was on one of those restless nights that I decided to take a closer look at the perfect family living next door. Their house was an imposing structure, with wide windows and a pristine garden. I could see the children playing in the yard, laughing and running as the sun set. At first glance, it appeared to be a scene from an advertisement, but there was something in the adults' gazes that made me uncomfortable. Their smiles didn't reach their eyes, a kind of forced cordiality that only fueled my curiosity. I needed to know more about them. The next morning, while preparing coffee, I decided it was time to chat with Lily, the neighbor who had been helpful since my first day in town. We met at the clothesline where I was hanging some towels. She smiled upon seeing me, and as I finished, I struck up a conversation. "Hi, Lily. Have you met the family next door?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She frowned, as if the question bothered her. "Oh, yes. The Andersons. They are different." "Different how?" My curiosity consumed me. "They have a perfect facade, but I've seen some strange things. It's like they're always hiding something. Have you noticed the way they look at others?" "Yes, I noticed. It's as if they're constantly evaluating people." She leaned in closer, lowering her voice as if fearing to be overheard. "Once, I saw one of the kids at the window, looking at me. It was almost like they were watching me, but not with curiosity, more like interest. You know. As if they were waiting for something." A chill ran down my spine. "Do you think they have a secret?" "I'm not sure, but something tells me they do. And I'm not the only one who thinks so. The previous occupants of the house you're in also had their secrets." Lily's words lingered in the air, and my connection to my own situation left me unsettled. "What do you know about them?" "I heard rumors. They say the former resident of your house, the one who disappeared, had a strange connection with the family next door. Some people believe they were involved in some way. But that's just gossip. But don't you think we should investigate? Find out what really happened?" I suggested, feeling a surge of determination. Lily hesitated, but the spark in her eyes showed that the idea intrigued her. "Okay, let's do it. But we need to be careful. They don't seem to like nosy neighbors. We decided that afternoon we would pay a visit to the Andersons. I didn't know what to expect, but adrenaline pulsed through my veins. I put on a blouse that made me feel comfortable yet determined. Lily was dressed casually, but her expression showed that she was tense, too. When we arrived at the Andersons' door, the air felt heavier. I knocked lightly, and to my surprise, the door opened quickly. A tall, elegant woman with long, dark hair greeted us. Her smile was warm, but her eyes were cold as steel. "Hello. How can I help you?" Her voice was smooth, but there was a note of tension. "Hi. I'm Emma, and this is my neighbor, Lily. We just wanted to introduce ourselves and chat a little," I replied, trying to sound friendly. "Of course. Come in." The woman stepped aside, allowing us to enter. The living room was impeccably decorated, with dark wooden furniture and paintings adorning the walls. However, there was a strange feeling in the air, as if that house was holding deep secrets. "We're just trying to settle into the town," I continued, feeling the need to keep the conversation light. "We're still getting to know the neighbors." "It's always nice to make new friends," the woman commented, leading us into the living room. "I'm Diana, the matriarch of the family. My husband, Thomas, should be around here somewhere." ####. Translation. As she spoke, I realized something was off. The children were huddled in a corner, far too quiet, watching us with penetrating gazes. The little boy, with his light hair and blue eyes, seemed particularly interested in me, but not in a friendly way. It felt more like he was assessing my every move. "Do you have children?" Diana asked, pulling me from my thoughts. "No, it's just me and my friend here," I replied, trying to divert my attention from the intensity of the child's stare. "Oh, what a pity. Children are a blessing, but they can also be quite a challenge." She laughed, but there was something forced about her laughter. The conversation continued, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something deeper behind the family's facade. With each word Diana spoke, I felt a growing unease. Lily seemed to sense it too. She exchanged a meaningful glance with me. We needed more information. After a few minutes, Thomas appeared, a man of average height but exuding an air of authority. He greeted us cordially, but his presence was intimidating. "What brings two young ladies to our home?" He shot us a scrutinizing look. "We were just introducing ourselves," Lily replied, her voice steady, though I could see she was nervous. "It's always nice to have new neighbors." "I hope you're enjoying the city," Thomas said, but his expression didn't seem genuine. "Yes, we're settling in. The city is lovely," I said, trying to keep the conversation light. After a few more exchanges, we decided it was time to leave. The atmosphere had grown heavy, and we exited with a palpable sense of not being welcome. Once the door closed behind us, we exchanged knowing glances. "Did you feel that?" I asked, my voice low. "Yes, something was very strange." "They're odd, Emma. We need to find out more about them and the former resident," Lily replied. That night, I couldn't sleep. The whispers began to intensify, and I wondered if they were trying to warn me about the family next door. What were they hiding? Why did the former resident of my house have a connection to them? I needed to know. The next day, I went to the town library, where I found a quiet corner. I started researching the Andersons and the former resident. The pages of the book seemed to whisper forgotten secrets, and I was determined to listen. After a few hours, I found an old article that mentioned the family. The Andersons, known for their exemplary lifestyle, have been part of this community for generations. However, rumors persist about their practices and the mysterious disappearance of a woman from the neighborhood. My heart raced as I read those words. This was it. The connection I was looking for. The former resident of my house had disappeared, and the Andersons were at the center of it all. The article mentioned ancient rituals that could be linked to them. It felt as though I had found a piece of the puzzle that could explain the whispers. Adrenaline surging, I went in search of Lily. Finding her was easy, she was at the local cafe, sipping tea. As soon as she saw me, she stood up excitedly. "Emma! You won't believe what I found. I found something too. We need to talk." We sat at a corner table, and I quickly shared what I had discovered. The Andersons have a dark history. It seems the former resident of my house was somehow connected to them, and there are rumors of ancient rituals. Rituals? This is serious, Emma. We need to dig deeper. The town might be hiding something very big. Yes, and we can't let this go. We'll uncover the truth, even if it means confronting the Andersons again. Lily nodded, and we both knew we were embarking on a dangerous journey. But I also felt it was necessary. The whispers that haunted me, the feeling of being watched, everything was part of something much larger, and I was determined to find out what it was. As we prepared for the next stage of our investigation, one thing was clear: the darkness surrounding the house next door and the town's secrets wouldn't let us rest. And I was ready to face whatever it was to uncover the truth. As the voices intensified, a chill crept into the house. I was sitting in my room, the lamp flickering, and soon realized it wasn't just the wind. The voices, which had once been subtle whispers, were now growing clearer and more insistent. They spoke of me, mentioning my name in a tone that blended familiarity with a hint of menace. It was not merely an echo, it was a summons, and I didn't know if I should respond. "Emma! Emma!" echoed the voices, as if they were closing in on me, invading my mind. I stood up, nervous, and walked to the window, searching for some sign of normalcy outside. The night was quiet, except for the rustling leaves in the trees. But the darkness seemed denser, as if it were alive, watching. I went downstairs and grabbed my phone. The light from the screen felt like a beacon in the dark. Lily, I thought, remembering my neighbor, who had been so willing to help. I needed someone who could understand what was happening. With trembling fingers, I quickly typed a message: "Can you come over? I need you." As I waited, the voices began to intertwine into a frantic murmur, all at once. "Emma, you need to know, you are next, don't run." Terror began to engulf me, my mind racing with the darkest possibilities. What could I be next for? What did that mean? The thought that the house had some kind of control over me, that it was feeding off my fears, sent me into a panic. Finally, I heard a soft knock at the door. It was Lily. I welcomed her with a tight hug, as if she were my only anchor in a sea of confusion and fear. "Emma, what happened?" she asked, her brow furrowed with concern. I don't know. The voices, they're getting louder. They're talking about a ritual. And I don't know what it means. I replied, my voice trembling. Lily held my arm firmly, her determination radiating. "Let's figure this out together." "What exactly did you hear?" she asked, leading me to the couch, where the dim lamplight felt more comforting. "They say I'm the next one, that a ritual is happening." "What does that mean, Lily?" I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. Lily frowned, deep in thought. "Rituals? This isn't good. I've heard some stories about strange things happening in this town. We need to investigate further." "But how? What can we do?" I felt panic rising in my throat again. "First, we need to understand who else might be involved. Let's head to the library. There might be records about the former resident and the family next door," she suggested, her voice steady, acting like a command that brought me some relief. "Okay," I agreed. I stood up, still feeling the adrenaline coursing through me. We made our way to the library, the path illuminated only by the moonlight. The shadows seemed to dance around us, and the sensation of being watched lingered. In the library, we found a small room filled with old files and dusty books. Lily began rummaging through the shelves, and I followed her, trying to focus. "Here," she exclaimed, pulling a thick book with a black cover. "This is about the town's history. It might have information about ancient rituals. As she flipped through the pages, I lost myself in thought, trying to decipher the whispers still echoing in my mind. "Emma, look at this." Lily called, and I quickly moved closer, my heart racing. She pointed to a passage discussing a cult that had settled in the town decades ago, performing sacrificial rituals to appease forces from beyond. "It says here that, during a certain period, several people disappeared. The former resident of your house, she was involved in this," Lily said, her eyes wide. "But why me? What does this have to do with me?" I asked, feeling anguish rise in my throat. Maybe she left something unfinished. And now, somehow, you're tied to it. ####, we need to find out more about the family next door, Emma. They might have information we don't know. Diverting my gaze from the book, I noticed a shadow pass by the window, sending a chill down my spine. "Lily, did you see that?" "Someone is watching us," I murmured, my voice trembling. Lily looked out the window, but there was nothing there. "It was just your imagination, Emma. The house might be affecting you more than you think. Let's focus on the family. If they have something to hide, we need to find out," she said, her tone serious. "I can't stay here. I need to know what's happening," I insisted, fear building within me. "Calm down. Let's prepare to talk to the family. We need to know what they know about the former resident and those rituals. But, Emma, we need to be careful. They might not like us investigating," Lily warned, her voice grave. "I won't be intimidated. I can't be the next one," I declared, feeling a determination spark within me. I knew I had to confront whatever was ahead, no matter what it was. The next morning, we decided to go to the family's house next door and, if necessary, introduce ourselves as new neighbors. The voices still echoed in my mind, but I was determined not to let them control my life. As we walked toward the house, the sun shone brightly, but the atmosphere was dense, almost oppressive. The perfect family home loomed before us, majestic and imposing, but there was something unsettling about its facade. The windows were shut tight, and no shadow moved behind them. "Are you ready?" Lily asked, her voice low. "Yes. Let's go," I replied, trying to maintain my composure. I knocked on the door, and soon a woman answered with a cordial smile, but her eyes seemed to analyze every move we made. "Hello, how can I help you?" she said, her tone more curious than welcoming. "Hi. We're your new neighbors, I'm Emma, and this is Lily. We wanted to introduce ourselves and learn a bit more about the neighborhood," I said, attempting to mask the anxiety in my voice. "Oh, that's nice. Please, come in," the woman replied, opening the door. As soon as we stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted. The air felt heavy, and I sensed something lurking beneath the surface. "You have such a lovely home," Lily commented, trying to break the ice. "Thank you. We love living here." "It's a quiet place," the woman said, but her expression changed slightly when we mentioned tranquility. "But sometimes, the silence can be unsettling." "Yes, we've noticed that. The house we're staying in has its peculiarities." "I've already heard some strange things," I said, forcing a smile. The woman looked at me with a mix of curiosity and caution. "Ah, old houses have their stories. Some people say the voices are just echoes from the past," she replied, her voice soft but with an undertone of warning. "Do you know anything about the former resident?" Lily asked, daring to go further than I expected. The woman's expression hardened. "That's not something people usually discuss. Some stories are better left in the past," she said, and I felt a weight in her words. We exchanged glances, and I realized the conversation wasn't going in the direction we hoped. "We're just curious, you know. The town has many interesting stories," I tried to smooth things over. "Yes, some stories are fascinating, but others are dangerous," the woman said, her gaze piercing, as if she were warning us. The atmosphere in the room grew heavy, and I could feel the tension rising. "Well, it was great to meet you. We'll leave you in peace," Lily said, gently pulling me toward the door. As we exited the house, a sense of being watched washed over us again, as if the woman had more to reveal but chose to remain silent. Once we closed the door behind us, I turned to Lily, my heart racing. "She knows something, I can feel it," I declared, adrenaline still coursing through my veins. "I agree. But how?" The house was shrouded in an unsettling gloom, and I felt darkness creeping closer as I braced myself for another night of whispers. That night, however, something different was in the air. A new voice, clearer and more insistent, echoed in my mind, like a melody I couldn't ignore. "Emma, come," it whispered, and I found myself drawn to the attic, where it all began. With my heart racing, I climbed the creaking stairs to the attic. The moonlight filtered through a small window, casting shadows that danced on the walls. I was sure there was something more in that house, something waiting for me to discover. The atmosphere was charged with expectation, and I could feel the palpable tension in the air. "What do you want from me?" I whispered, almost like a prayer, as I scanned the room. It was then that I heard the voice again, clearer than ever. "In the hiding place, Emma. The hiding place holds the truth." My mind spun with those words. The hiding place? What did that mean? What was I supposed to find there? Curiosity and fear battled within me, but the urgency of the voice pushed me forward. I decided I needed to find that place. I rushed down the stairs and headed to the basement. The air was cold, and the dampness sent chills across my skin. The walls were covered in mold, and the smell of rotting wood filled my lungs. I pulled out a piece of paper I had found earlier, something that looked like a rough map of the house. My heart raced as I visualized the location of what could be the hiding place. I followed the line to a dark, damp corner where light didn't reach. With some effort, I pushed aside an old bookshelf blocking the way. The door creaked open, revealing a cramped, dusty space. The smell of mildew and despair hung in the air, and the darkness felt alive, as if it were waiting for me. I turned on a flashlight and illuminated the interior. The walls were covered with scrawled words, and various objects lay scattered on the floor. In the center, something was gleaming. As I approached, I realized it was a small altar, adorned with a melted candle and what appeared to be a metal amulet. "Emma, you're close," the voice whispered once more, and I felt an intense chill run down my spine. The altar seemed to pulse with a strange energy, as if it were anticipating my arrival. I looked around, trying to comprehend what was happening. "What do you want me to do?" I murmured, anxiety growing within me. Then my eyes fell upon a dusty portrait pinned to the wall. I wiped the dust away with my hand, and as I did, I nearly stumbled backward. The woman in the portrait looked just like me. Her eyes were mine, and her expression reflected a deep sadness I had never seen before. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice faltering. "Are you calling me?" "She is you, Emma. The past has never abandoned you," the voice echoed again, and my heart raced. The connection between us was becoming clearer. This woman, who seemed to have lived a life of pain and secrets, was a part of me. A fragment of my history that I had ignored for too long. "You need to accept the truth," the voice insisted. "What happened to her is what you fear." Unsure of what to expect, I stepped closer to the altar and touched the amulet. It was cold to the touch, and a wave of memories began to flood my mind. Flashbacks of a childhood filled with shadows, of a female figure watching me from a distance, of secrets piling up like dust on a forgotten table. "What happened to you?" I whispered to the portrait, as if hoping the woman could answer me. The voice, now stronger, began to tell the story. "She was forgotten, Emma. Forgotten by the town, by the family, by you. It's time to bring to light what was buried." The weight of those words pressed down on me. I needed to understand what had happened, not just for myself, but for this woman who had suffered so much. What do I need to do? I asked again, determined to unearth the truth. Find the objects. Put the pieces together. Hashtag, 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 the answer lies in your secrets, the voice echoed, now more urgent. I looked around and began searching for the objects scattered across the floor. Each item seemed to tell a part of the story, and I knew I needed to gather them. A broken watch, a worn bracelet, and a music box that still emitted a soft sound when I opened it. Every object vibrated with its own energy, and I could feel they were connected to the woman in the portrait. You need to understand, Emma. What happened to that woman cannot happen to you. You must free the secrets, the voice said, and I realized that time was running out. The pressure mounted, and the whisper became almost deafening. Are you ready to face the truth? I hesitated for a moment, but determination took hold of me. Yes, I'm ready. I can't run away anymore. With those thoughts, I began to gather the objects into a small pile on the altar. When I finished, the room seemed to illuminate with a soft light, and the voice became clearer, as if it were right beside me. Now, look at the portrait and see beyond what your eyes can perceive. I did as the voice instructed. I stared deeply into the eyes of the woman in the portrait, and as if a portal opened before me, I glimpsed flashes of her life. I saw moments of joy and pain, love and despair. I witnessed her struggle to break free from a past that imprisoned her and realized that her choices had led her to a point of no return. I can't let this happen to me, I murmured, fear growing in my chest. You don't have to. You can change the story, the voice replied, now filled with hope. The choice is yours, Emma. My hands trembled as I looked at the objects I had gathered. They were more than mere relics, they were witnesses to a forgotten life, a past that cried out for recognition. What I did now could alter not only my destiny but also hers. Before the altar, a sense of clarity began to emerge. I was not just confronting the ghosts of the past, I was about to rewrite that story. I accept, I declared, my voice firm despite the fear still consuming me. I accept my story. I accept you. The atmosphere around me seemed to shift, and a wave of warmth washed over me, as if the house was finally breathing a sigh of relief. Now, Emma, you are ready to face what comes next, the voice whispered, and I knew the journey was only just beginning. The tension in the air was palpable as I finally prepared to confront the perfect family. The sun was setting on the horizon, casting long and distorted shadows across the property, while my heart pulsed in a way I couldn't ignore. I was determined to uncover the truth about what had happened to the former resident of my house and how it was connected to that mysterious family. Their house was an imposing structure, with large windows that seemed to watch my every move. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of emotions inside me. Lily had decided to stay at a safe distance but sent me a supportive message, you can do it, Emma. Remember what you discovered. The truth is on your side. I knocked on the door, and it opened slowly, revealing a woman standing there with a cordial smile, but her eyes were as cold as marble. It was the family matriarch, Mrs. Anderson. Emma, dear. What brings you here? Her voice sounded sweet, but there was an underlying tone of distrust. I need to talk to you and your family. About the former resident of my house, I replied, trying to maintain my composure. What I wanted to say was that I knew they were involved in something much more sinister, but the words seemed difficult to pronounce. She hesitated for a moment, looking around as if checking if anyone could hear. Come in, then. Let's talk in the living room. The interior of the house was so immaculate it felt like it had come out of a magazine. Elegant furniture, a scent of fresh flowers, and a silence that was almost deafening. As I entered, Mr. Anderson appeared, his calculating gaze assessing me. Emma, what exactly do you want? He asked, arms crossed, as if preparing for a fight. I discovered things about the former resident of my house. She disappeared, and I think you have something to do with it, I asserted, my voice trembling. I know the town hides secrets, and I'm here to expose the truth. The Andersons' faces changed. Mrs. Anderson looked at her husband, and he made a subtle gesture, as if trying to control the situation. You don't know what you're talking about, Emma. Those stories are just legends. There's no truth in them. No. I insisted, my heart racing. I heard the voices. They told me about rituals, sacrifices, and the woman who disappeared. I know you were involved, and I want to know the truth. Mrs. Anderson stepped forward, and her eyes sparkled with an intensity that unnerved me. You shouldn't play with such things, dear. What you heard are echoes of the past, things that should remain buried. You're putting yourself in danger. Danger? I laughed, but it was a nervous laugh. Do you really think you can intimidate me? I'm not the scared little girl you can frighten anymore. The house I bought, the house you want me to stay away from, is full of secrets, and I will unearth them. Tension escalated, and I realized the family was closing in. Mr. Anderson stepped closer, his threatening tone now clear. If you keep asking questions, Emma, you may end up getting hurt. Some truths don't need to be revealed, and some stories don't need to be told. And is that what you do? Keep the truths hidden. Why are you so afraid to look at the past? I could no longer hold back the anger swelling inside me. The woman who disappeared was a part of you. What happened to her? What did you do? Mrs. Anderson approached, her gaze locked on me. The former resident was no ordinary woman. She got involved in matters she didn't understand. And if you insist on continuing this search, you might end up like her. You're toying with forces you cannot comprehend. And you think that will scare me? I've already faced things you can't even imagine. The house speaks to me, and now I need to know what happened. I'm not the only one who could suffer from this, others may be affected too. Mr. Anderson let out a dry laugh, a sound that echoed through the room like thunder. Do you really believe you can make a difference? The town has its secrets, and you're not the first to try to expose them. They all ended up badly. At this point, my heart was racing, and adrenaline began to flow. So it's true. You're afraid I'll discover what you did, aren't you? What happened to that woman? What are you hiding? You don't know what you're talking about, Emma. Mrs. Anderson crossed her arms, her gaze becoming more intense. The story of your house is much more complicated than you imagine. There are things that shouldn't be unearthed. A heavy silence fell over the room. I looked at their faces, trying to decipher the truth hidden behind their words. I can't let this go. The former resident deserves justice, and I won't stop until I get all the answers. The Andersons exchanged glances, and a look of dread crossed their faces. You don't understand, Emma. There's a reason the town lives in peace. If you keep digging, you might provoke something that you cannot control, Mr. Anderson said, his voice now softer, but filled with warning. And what if I have to provoke it? What do you have to hide? What happened to the woman who disappeared? I was not willing to back down. Every word I spoke seemed to strengthen my resolve. You can't understand, you can't see what's really at stake, Mrs. Anderson said, her voice almost a whisper. All the lives that were involved in those circumstances don't deserve to be remembered. The town needs you out of the way. Out of the way. I laughed, but it was a bitter laugh. I am part of this story, and I won't be intimidated by you. ####, if there's one thing I've learned, it's that trying to bury the truth doesn't make it disappear. It only makes it stronger. Mr. Anderson took a step closer to me, his gaze sharp as a blade. You don't know what you're doing. You don't understand the risks. The former resident, her family, it's all interconnected, and you could end up drawing darkness into your life and the lives of those you love. I'm not afraid of the darkness. I've been there. What I truly fear is the truth. And you're preventing me from finding it. I was ready to fight, not just for myself but for everyone who had suffered because of this secret. The voices I had heard in my house began to echo in my mind, and I knew they wouldn't let me rest until I uncovered everything. If you don't tell me the truth now, I will make sure everyone knows what you've hidden. I won't give up, no matter what happens. A look of desperation crossed Mrs. Anderson's face as she glanced at her husband, and the tension in the room felt almost unbearable. Emma, you don't understand what you're asking. Darkness isn't something you can simply ignore. It's something that consumes, that devours. You need to walk away before it's too late. I can't walk away. I can't ignore what's happening. The former resident needs me to uncover the truth, and I will do it, even if it means confronting you. The expression on Mr. Anderson's face hardened, and he moved even closer. You're playing with fire, Emma. And fire usually burns those who get too close. Then burn me. Because I'd rather be burned seeking the truth than live in the darkness of ignorance. I shouted, realizing in that moment that the fight was just beginning. The heavy air between us seemed to vibrate with tension, and I knew there was no turning back. The only way out was to move forward, even if it meant facing the darkness they were so desperately trying to hide. A storm was approaching, and I could feel the pressure in the air rising with every moment. The house, with its old walls and restless whispers, felt more alive than ever. The lights flickered, and darkness seemed to seep into every corner, as if it were preparing to swallow everything whole. I looked at the makeshift altar I had set up in the center of the living room. The candles flickered, casting dancing shadows on the stained walls. I wasn't sure what was about to happen, but I knew it was a step I had to take. Emma, are you ready? Lily's voice sounded like a ray of sunshine amid the chaos. She was by my side, her expression a mix of concern and determination. What we had discovered about the perfect family and the rituals surrounding this house left me uneasy, but there was no turning back. I needed to confront the whispers, I needed to face the truth. I'm not sure what "ready" means, but I can't ignore this any longer. If I don't do it now, I fear I never will, I replied, trying to sound more confident than I actually felt. Lily nodded, her hand gripping mine firmly. We'll do it together. You're not alone in this. You never were. The rain beat down hard on the windows, and the wind howled outside, as if nature itself were manifesting against what we were about to do. With one last look at the candles, I took a deep breath, trying to channel the courage I lacked. Let's begin, I declared, my voice trembling slightly. Lily lit the last candle and then stood silently beside me. With trembling hands, I picked up the diary of the former resident of the house. The pages were yellowed and worn, but each word still pulsed with the energy of her memories. Here, I murmured, opening the diary to the passage that had caught my attention. She spoke of a ritual that could free her from the voices. Are you sure this is safe? What if something goes wrong? The concern in Lily's eyes was palpable. We don't have a choice. The voices are intensifying, and I feel they're trying to tell me something. I need to know. With that, I began to recite the words of the ritual, my voice echoing in the empty space. Spirits that inhabit these walls, come to me. I seek answers, no longer whispers that torment my soul. With each phrase, I felt the energy around us grow, as if the very spirits of the house were listening. Lily held my hand tighter, and I could feel her support. This is right, Emma. Keep going, she encouraged. The atmosphere seemed to shift. The candles flickered more intensely, and a cold draft swept through the room. I'm not here to harm anyone, I continued, my voice starting to falter. I just want to understand. Suddenly, a whisper cut through the air, echoing off the walls. Emma. The sound was unmistakable, and my heart raced. It was the same voice I had heard before, but now it was clearer, closer. You cannot escape. Did you hear that? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Yes. What was that? Lily's expression turned to genuine fear. I don't know, I replied, my mind spinning. Maybe it's part of the ritual. I have to keep going. With every word I recited, the presence in the room grew stronger. The voices began to overlap, creating a chorus of whispers that seemed to want to consume me. What do you hide? What do you fear? Echoed the voices, and I didn't know if they were mine or belonged to the former resident. I don't know. I screamed. I don't know what you want from me. The candles began to extinguish, one by one, as if they were being sucked into the darkness surrounding us. Emma, we need to stop. Lily exclaimed, her gaze turning desperate. No. I can't stop now. If I do, I'll never know the truth. The tension in the air was palpable, and the atmosphere seemed to vibrate with the weight of our emotions. We need to stay focused. Let's concentrate on what we want to discover, Lily said, trying to remain calm. Who is here? I asked, my voice trembling. Why won't you leave me alone? The cold enveloped my body, and a sense of despair began to consume me. You know, the voice whispered, almost like a lament. You know what happened. A chill ran down my spine. I didn't want to remember. The memories I had buried were beginning to resurface, and the pain I had tried to ignore was becoming more intense. No. I whispered, trying to block out the image of the female figure that had always watched me in my nightmares. No, I can't. Emma, stay strong. Lily shouted, and her voice brought me back to reality. Remember what you're trying to do. You are stronger than this. With immense effort, I tried to regain my focus. Spirits, I implore you, reveal the truth. What happened to the woman who lived here? What do I have to do with this? The answer came in a deafening whisper, like a scream reverberating off the walls. You left her behind, and now you must face what you did. A wave of pain coursed through my body, as if a door I had long closed was swinging open again. I didn't do anything. I protested, but the voice kept insisting. You know what caused her disappearance. The candles went out completely, and darkness engulfed everything. I was alone, lost in a sea of voices and shadows. Lily. I cried, but the darkness seemed to swallow her name. Emma, I'm here. Lily's voice reached me, but it sounded distant, as if she were in another place. Don't get lost. You need to fight. With titanic effort, I began to remember. Flashbacks of a tormented childhood, of a female figure who had always been there, watching but never approaching. I had caused her pain, her despair. I was the reason for her disappearance. I didn't mean to. I screamed at the voices, but all I received in response was an echo of mocking laughter. You cannot escape yourself. The pressure increased, and the feeling of suffocation surrounded me. I can't do this. You must. Lily's voice cut through the darkness. Emma, you need to confront what you hide. Hashtag, it's the only way to break free. With one last scream of determination, I faced the darkness that surrounded me. I am no longer the scared child. I am Emma Carter, and I will not let the past define me any longer. At that moment, something shifted. The darkness began to recede, and the voices that had once been deafening started to calm. I was no longer alone. You are stronger than you think, Lily whispered, and the candles slowly reignited, illuminating the room once more. With each breath, I felt the weight of the past dissipate, as if I were finally confronting the truth I had ignored for so long. I face you. I face my truth. The ritual was not over, but in that moment, I knew I was on the right path. The storm raged outside, and I stood at the center of the room, surrounded by dancing shadows, while the wind howled like a hungry creature. The makeshift altar in front of me was adorned with lit candles, their flickering flames casting light on the ritualistic objects I had found in the hideaway. My heart raced, adrenaline coursing through my veins, but the true battle unfolded within me. The voices that had once whispered dark secrets were now a deafening chorus, echoing my own guilt. "Emma, are you ready?" Lily's voice cut through the air, firm yet laced with concern. I looked at her. Her expression mirrored the storm brewing outside, a mix of determination and fear. "I don't know, Lily," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "What if this doesn't work? What if, instead of liberation, it leads us into something far darker and deeper?" She stepped closer, holding my hand. "We need to do this. For you. For the woman in the portrait. For all those who came before us." Her gaze was intense, and in that moment, I saw not just a friend, but an ally. I took a deep breath, trying to focus. The voices began to intensify, each one clearer than the last. They were no longer mere whispers, now they were screams, clamoring for attention and recognition. "Emma! Emma! Look at what you've done." "I feel it," I murmured, my mind spinning. "I feel like I'm about to uncover something I can't bear." "Then we'll face it together," Lily said firmly. "You're not alone. We'll confront this." I believed her words, but doubt still weighed heavily in my heart. The storm outside seemed to scream against my decision. The voices now morphed into a chaotic symphony. "What have you done? What are you hiding?" They intertwined, and I was on the verge of being swallowed by them. I raised my hand, trying to silence the internal clamor. I need to remember. Everything. I closed my eyes, searching through forgotten memories for an answer. And as if the universe were aligning events, images began to surface. I remembered my childhood, the gaze of a woman who had always lingered at the periphery of my life, the woman from the portrait. The desperation in her eyes. The connection between us was about to be revealed. "Emma." The voices echoed again, now softer, almost like a whisper of hope. "Remember what happened." I was just a child. I shouted, the sound of my own voice reverberating against the walls of the house. I didn't know what I was doing. The scene was vivid. I saw the former resident, her expression twisted between despair and anger. The moment when everything happened flashed before me. I was playing with the doll she had left behind, and I called out, "Come play with me." And she didn't come. The voices crescendoed, now deafening screams. "You left her. You abandoned her." "No." I shouted, the pain swelling inside me. "I didn't mean to. I didn't know that she was in danger. But you did nothing to help her." The voice became an accusation, and I sank into guilt, tears streaming down my face. "Why didn't you save her? You let her disappear." The memories kept flooding in, each heavier than the last. The moment the woman vanished, I had been consumed by curiosity, by the child who didn't grasp the gravity of the situation. I didn't know she was in danger. I was just playing. Playing. Lily murmured, her voice soft but firm. "What you did was more than that, Emma. You abandoned her." The weight of the truth crashed down on me like an avalanche. I had been the cause of her disappearance, even if indirectly. I didn't search for her. I didn't think she was in danger. I felt so alone. "You need to accept it," Lily said, squeezing my hand. "You can't change the past, but you can confront it." The voices began to calm, as if they were waiting for me to take responsibility. I'm sorry," I said, my voice trembling. "I'm sorry for not being there. I'm sorry for not realizing. You deserved more than this." In that moment, the space around me seemed to vibrate. The candles flickered, almost as if responding to my confession. The voices began to transform, now less accusatory and more sorrowful. "Emma, do you finally understand?" "I understand," I replied. "And I am ready to face what I did. I am ready to free you and myself." With a renewed sense of determination, I began to recite the words I had heard. I free you from my past. I free us both. The storm outside seemed to intensify, but I refused to be shaken. You are no longer alone. I will not forget you again. The voices began to quiet, and a strange peace started to settle in. The pain that had once dominated my heart began to dissipate, giving way to a feeling of lightness. I had faced the truth, and now I was ready to let it go. Emma. The voice that had once been a scream now sounded like a gentle whisper. Thank you. A wave of warmth coursed through my body, and I realized the woman from the portrait was no longer just in my mind. She was here, by my side, in spirit. I feel your pain, I said, tears of relief streaming down my face. And I will never let you be forgotten again. The voices finally fell silent, and the storm outside began to calm. A new day was dawning, and I knew that by accepting my past, I was allowing light to enter the darkness that had once dominated my life. Lily looked at me, her eyes shining with pride. You did it, Emma. You freed yourself. Yes, but I can't do it alone, I replied, pulling her into a tight embrace. Thank you for standing by my side. Feeling the connection between us, I realized it was not just about me and the woman in the portrait. It was about all the women who had struggled and lost in this endless cycle of pain and guilt. We are free now, I said, looking out the window where the first rays of sunlight began to break through the darkness of the night. Yes, Lily agreed, smiling. And now, we can start anew. As the sun illuminated the house, I knew the journey was not over, but the darkness had receded, and I was ready to face it with courage and hope. I had finally found my voice in the dark.